what we tend not to think about with writing is the broader politics of writing, and why, certainly for me, these kinds of workshops are so incredibly important because of where we are situated as African people in the world. Now, I'm situated differently from you. I'm from South Africa, I'm white and so on, but I'm not part of the global north where most of the publishing is happening. Okay, there's a fun site on the internet, and you can use these, and you might have seen some of them, called World Mapper. Have any of you used worldmapper.org? You know, it's quite fun, and I'll show you how it works. Okay, so World Mapper distorts a map of the world according to, some of you will have seen this, I'm sure, according to big issues. So that's generally what the world map looks like. We know that there's all sorts of problems with that, but you recognize that map. That's a map you saw in school. Okay. You know where Africa is? Okay. Do you know where Australia? Keep your eyes on Australia. Look how big Australia is and look where it is, because Australia, for our purposes, is very important. The Australians have put a lot of resources into helping people become better researchers and write more. So just let's see. So now we're going to look at some big social issues that are of interest to people in Africa. And I just sort of chose them. I mean, there's a whole lot of these that you can get. Okay, so this is HIV prevalence. So what happens to Africa? It bulges. So where is the most HIV in the world? Can everybody see? It's in Africa, a lot in India. Australia's disappeared. There's hardly any Europe, much less in the Americas, because where is HIV? We know where HIV is. It's with us. Okay, so this is where the big problem is of HIV. Where are the illiterate young women in the world? A very important indicator in the light of the Sustainable Development Goals, female empowerment and female literacy. Africa and Asia. Australia's gone. You see, there's no Australia here because there's very high literacy rates amongst women in Australia, and very little happening in Europe and the Americas. Okay? Now we're going to look at another indicator. This is where science research is happening. What's happened to Africa? Africa's gone. Look who's back. Australia. There was no Australia. Australia's back. Where are the big bulges? It's North America, Europe, Australia, and to some extent China, and those countries are coming up. These are quite old, and I'm sort of cheating with the data and so on, but it's just to give you a sense of things. Okay? Another one, research and development, very similar. Suddenly Europe is enormous. Africa's hardly there. And Australia's back, North America, and so on. So we're in a situation as African scholars, welcome. We're in a situation as African scholars where the big issues of the world are actually where we are, the things that we need to know about. But the knowledge that we have comes from the north. And many of you are teachers, and you're all students, and I'm sure you've experienced what I experienced. You read these textbooks in sociology, or I don't know, in economics, but certainly in sociology and psychology and so on, and they describe a world which doesn't look like the world that we live in. It's different. So in psychology, they talk about the family, and what's a family? It's a mother and a father and two children living in Europe. Well, you know, families in Africa aren't like that. I mean, I don't know about in South Africa, more children are born to single women than to women who have partners, for example. We have extended family structures and so on. That's not reflected in the psychology literature, generally speaking. So what do we know about human development is very skewed, actually. So who's going to change that? If we sit and wait for the people in the north to change that knowledge for us, we're going to wait a long time. They're not going to change it. It's up to us.